Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood, and this is going to be a different video for me because this time we're actually going to build a project start to finish. It's not about the files and it's not about Lightburn and design, but rather working with wood and making something with your 10-watt diode. So hang around, this is going to be a good one. So after watching a video from Rich, the Louisiana hobby guy, and his coasters and coaster boxes, that got me inspired to take and build some projects of my own that revolved around coasters and coaster boxes. So in this video, the way I'm going to approach it is I'm going to show you the actual cutting and of the project, not in real time because that would take forever, but I'm going to show you the process of how the pieces were cut out, how they were assembled, and then to create the end project. Then we'll jump into Lightburn and I'll show you how I set it up and how I come up with that design. And it's so simple. This is something you can do with your 10-watt diode. It's probably a 5-watt too. It's just going to take a little longer to cut. But you do not need a powerful laser to make some really nice things. So let's take a look at what I accomplished in one day with my Comgrow Comgo Z1 and Lightburn. Alright, I picked up this piece of ash from West Penn Hardwoods. This is 3mm ash, and it's going to work out really well with some walnut that I had here in the shop already, which was 1.5mm thick walnut. So this design is set up to where I'm going to alternate 2 pieces of walnut sandwiched between 3 pieces of ash. And these are the individual pieces that will be glued together, laminated together. Now if you notice, none of the overlapping cuts are being cut twice. This cuts down on any excessive kerf between the pieces, and it's not that big of a deal here in the way of excessive kerf since none of these are going to be fitted together. But if you're using designs where you are doing boxes that snap together, anytime you can eliminate overlapping lines, it does give you a tighter fit. So fingers crossed all these are going to drop out, because the first time you see over there on the right, they didn't come out cleanly. Some of these dropped, some of these didn't. So let's see what we can make happen. When you're dealing with hardwoods, it can have its own issues, just like plywood, just different types of issues. But these are going to come out and clean up really nice. And since I'm going to be sanding the burnt edges off of here, if we get a little tear here, there's not a big deal. Get all these little pieces out of these slots, and we'll get the walnut on the workbed and cut out the exact same image in the walnut. Now this is only 1.5mm thick walnut, so it's cutting through a lot faster, a lot cleaner. Exact same pattern, no overlapping lines. Or I should say, eliminated overlapping lines, only cutting it once. The one thing I should have done here though is I've got these little accents that snap into the top slots, and I didn't forget, I just didn't think far enough in advance to put those on this cut while I'm doing this cut, and I end up clearing the wood and having to put it back in place just to cut out my little accent pieces. But this was the first time making this, so wasn't thinking 4 steps ahead. Good clean cuts, good drops. And a little hanger. bottom slot on these legs is where the base or the stand will actually for the coasters to sit on, and the top notch is where this little accent piece will go right here. These little accent pieces. These are to help with the alignment and also to add some character to the legs once it's fully sanded and finished. And this is the rectangular base. Cutting it out of the same 3mm ash. As I said, wasn't planning in advance, and so it wasn't cut out while the ash was still on the table. Engraving my logo, Hobo wood, because I am Hobo with wood, and I make Hobo wood. And as I said, this is the Comgrow Z1 10 watt. What you see here is sped up at, I think, 10 times speed. There's our first piece glued up. You see the accent is proud on either side, the burnt edges, and we're going to clean all that up. And with the magic of YouTube, we're going to take a little sandpaper, sand it, and pop. There we go. That's what the finished leg is going to look like. Before any finish, of course. Alright, just got to make a few more of them. Snap it together. I say snap. We actually glued this up. Got the brand on the bottom there. Give it another fine sanding, and then we're going to put a layer of lacquer on it. Sand that and put a last layer of lacquer on her. I think it's a pretty unique look. It is one of a kind. What do you think about the design? You have to drop a comment down below and let me know. Now these are acacia wood, 12mm thick acacia wood coasters. Got little rubber feet on them so they're not marking up your table. I'll end up rubbing these in all natural oil, food grade oil, just to bring out the natural beauty of the wood. The acacia wood is a beautiful piece of wood, but I don't want to seal them because I don't want them to be repelling water. Looks good. So that turned out pretty cool. And now that you've seen the process, let me show you how I designed this. This is not going to be a file that I share with you simply because it comes down to using materials that I have on hand and not something that you're just going to be able to run out to the store and pick up. But once you see how I designed this, you can find the materials you have in your shop or what you can acquire, and you can design this yourself because it is as simple as you can possibly imagine. There is nothing to it. So let's jump into Lightburn and take a look at the design. Alright, so we zoom in here to this. You can see it is just one design here for the one piece of the leg, the little insert, and then the base. Alright, so what I started with, I took the measurement of my, these were store-bought coasters, and determined just how big I needed my space to be. And then I looked at the total stack of the combined coasters, all four of them, how tall were they going to be, and used that to determine how long the legs were going to be. I wanted to have, once all the coasters were in play, and this little notch right here, I determined its position based on this distance. If I look at the measurement here, that right there, that 0.4724 inches or 12 millimeters, that 12 millimeter distance is the width of one of the coasters. So when I'm designing, I'm designing from in my mind of how it's going to look when it's complete. With all 4 coasters stacked in there, I wanted the distance from the tabletop, so that because the tabletop would be sitting here, because right now they're laying on their side. So, well, go away. Now, gotta get up here above it. Alright, so there it is. That's how she's standing, right? These little pieces are just little accents. But this is the legs of the coaster stand. And right there, so from here to here was 12 millimeters because that was the thickness of one of my coasters. So I'm envisioning all of those coasters setting in here, and that was just what I thought was going to look good, having that equal amount of gap between the bottom of the coaster and the tabletop. So that's how I determined where to position that. Now these slots, let's look at just one of these individual legs so you can see how I did this. Select you all, ungroup you all. Because right now those look like they're slots, but they're not. Or they're not rectangles. They are just little slots. So I determined the overall size and height of my leg. Because like I said, it was right there. She's what? Height, let's put her in millimeters. 76 millimeters. I got 4 coasters at 12 millimeters a piece. It's 48 millimeters. And actually, if we said 5, because I wanted to count the space at the bottom to being equal to 1 coaster, so that's 5 12s is 60 millimeters. And then that gives me 16 millimeters from the top of the coaster to the very top of it. And I allowed some for sanding, because as you've seen in the video, I'm working with real hardwoods here, and I knew I was going to be sanding some down, and I wanted to be able to have a fairly uniform gap between the top and the bottom, and that's how I got there. Now, as far as the size of these slots, this right here is that little walnut insert, and the walnut that I was working with, as I said, was 1.5 millimeters, I think it was. In fact, we can just go to ruler and go right there. Right there, 1.6 millimeters. Actually, I think it was 1.5, and I allowed just a little bit more room. Could have left a little bit more, but I wanted a snug, tight fit. Because that served 2 purposes. It gave it that really unique accent on the leg, and it also helped keep all of those pieces aligned. Because I did these out of the 3 millimeter ash, and then a 1.5 millimeter walnut. 2 pieces of walnut sandwiched between 3 pieces of ash. And then I glued them all up, and then used that wedge to help keep everything aligned and in place, and sanded everything down. This base was, the size of it, again, was determined by the need, what was required for the size of the coaster. And I had the coasters go in there. We'll rotate this 45 degrees, so because the coasters, if you recall there, the coasters set in there like that. But as far as the design goes, if you're going to do this, you're going to have, either you've bought your coasters, you've made your coasters, but this setup, this design for this little stand is easy peasy. And the way I determined the width of this leg right here was I looked at, I had 3 millimeters of ash, and then I had 1.5 millimeters of walnut. I told you to go on the other layer. Oh, well, it's all right. We'll do this. And then, so that's 1.5 millimeters. Come on, there we go. All right, so I had 2 of those, Control D, and I had 3 of these, Control D, D. Duplicated that one twice, and it goes there. And this is a neat trick that I learned just the other day. We were talking to Rich, the Louisiana hobby guy. Of course, you know, if you select them all and tell them to line to the top, they go there. But if also, while you have those selected, you know, I've been using docking, but I didn't see this. And but if you go to arrange and distribute, now I want to distribute these horizontally. Not distribute. I don't want to distribute. I want to move together horizontally. Alt-Shift-H. Bam. Sandwiched them all together. But that right there, there's all 3 pieces of my wood. And now if I select that entire thing, I see I'm 12 millimeters thick. So that is how I determined the thickness of that leg. So that way, whenever if that's how wide they are when they're all sandwiched together, so I wanted them to be the same in the way of depth, so that it was kind of a square leg. This piece here, what I did was I had this notch come in half of the distance, and this notch come in half of the distance. This is the slot for the walnut, which was 1.5 millimeters, and I made it just a little bit tight. And that's the thickness of the ash, which was 3 millimeters. So like I said, it's not a real hard design. I put a little radius on the top up here so that if you're putting your hands in and out, you're not getting poked by a sharp corner. And these radius on here, they serve no purpose whatsoever except for when I'm assembling the piece. I actually assembled those on the outside, so this flush straight line went in to the legs. So I'm pushing on here. So I put little radiuses on there so I'm not poking my thumb with a sharp corner. So that was just done for assembly purposes, because all that was sanded away. I made those larger. You see they're 16 millimeters instead of 12 millimeters. So I had 2 millimeters on either side of it and to sand away to make sure I had it good and centered up. So I hope you found this to be enjoyable. I found it informative, entertaining. But I want to take just a minute and say thank you to all of my patrons. I really appreciate your support. I have yet to make a video where I put all the names scrolling up through there. I don't know if that's important to the patrons. Just thank you. And plus, you guys get to see a lot more than these other folks are seeing on Patreon anyway. So, thank you. If you would be interested in becoming a patron on Patreon, please go to patreon.com Hobo with Wood. That's links down below in the Show More section. I've got a new website. In fact, I'm going to put this on my website, the finished product. This will be the first product that I put on my website for sale. I'm going to ask $59.95 for this. If you're not local and there will be shipping involved, but this will be the first product that I actually put on the website for sale. The website is hobowithwood.com. I can probably make a couple of these, but right now I've got this one. We'll see how well it's received. If it sells well, I might make another one. So if you're interested in this, jump over to the website. This is the only product that I will have for sale. There are lots of designs on there, and I'm adding to the designs to that page weekly, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. So Hobo with Wood, go check that out. If you'd like to be a supporter, go to patreon.com/hobowithwood. You already know the channel because you're on it. Make sure you subscribe. And I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood, and I'll see you in the next video.